Good morning. Welcome to GSBA's Rapid Response, giving you the opportunity to ask questions with live answers. In the midst of COVID-19, finding the right relief for your business can be a challenge. Today, our immediate feedback comes from our dedicated GSBA member, RainCity CPA. My name is Joey Chapman. I use he, him, his pronouns, and I am the Membership Development Manager for GSBA. And today I will be your rapid response moderator. Along with fellow GSBA members, staff members tuning in this morning, joining me today will be Terea Miller. Terea uses she, her, hers pronouns and is the GSBA Membership and Programs Manager. GSBA continues to follow Governor Inslee's stay home, stay healthy order, now extended through May 4th. Our staff members are participating in practicing physical distancing, working remotely while staying socially connected, meeting members' needs with our up-to-date GSBA COVID-19 emergency resource page and the GSBA Rapid Response. So how will today's Rapid Response work for you? Our format for these virtual meetings will continue to be structurally organic, allowing you to engage professionals with questions that are pertinent to today. We are on Zoom, and at the bottom of your screens, you will all be able to locate the chat button. So throughout the hour, please feel free to use the chat feature to ask questions of our guests. Terea will follow along and will interject if the question should be addressed during the interview portion or perhaps during the Q&A itself. So today, we would like to go ahead and welcome our guest from RainCity CPA, owner and managing partner, CPA Jordie Neth. Thank you so much for joining us today, Jordie.
Yes, my pleasure. Hopefully I can give people some guidance on all the fluid changes that are happening out there.
Sure, and it seems like it's constantly changing. If you could just take a few moments to go ahead and just give a little bit of a background of yourself and introduce yourself to our viewers today.
Yeah, so RainCity CPA, we started in January of 2011. I've been doing CPA work for 15 years now, although this year is our most trying time with so many different things in flux. So we're a team of 11 dedicated professionals. We've been putting out ever since Inslee said he was going to be closing non-essential businesses. We showed up that night and started working on how to help business owners lay off employees, handouts, packets, stuff like that, trying to ease the burden on the other business owners because we're considered essential. We do payroll, we are obviously doing people's tax returns and assisting them in applying for loans. So we haven't stopped working.
Well, we definitely thank you for being here today to help ease some of the burden that I'm sure a lot of folks are having at this moment. So what we would like to do is definitely jump into some quick scenario questions that have been brought up to GSBA. Once we do that, we'll definitely be able to go ahead and continue to open it up for additional Q&A from all of our guests who are viewing. I'm sure there will be a lot to come from our guests today. So let's just jump right in. Jordie, what SBA loans should folks be applying for?
The way we're tackling the issue is there were a multitude of changes that are happening. We're recommending most of our clients apply for the economic disaster loan first, because it can always be rolled into this new PPP loan as things are going on. The problem with the PPP loan is it went live this last Friday. Banks don't have the money to do the lending. They are starting to accept applications, but it's still in flux. When filling out the economic disaster relief loan parts and for the grant, we realized it's designed for hurricanes. You lost your oven in your restaurant and you need to replace it. They don't have a checkbox for saying it's part of a virus outbreak, and that is why I'm applying for this loan. We have not seen any updates on those loan documents yet coming in from the SBA, so it's a work in progress on their side. But we are doing our best in trying to assist people. If you feel confused about filling out the loan documentation, realize you're not the only one, because it's not designed for this. It's designed for natural disasters, which we now can account a pandemic as being part of. They just haven't updated everything on their side. So if you get confused, don't feel bad. Just do your best when you're trying to gather documentation for that. The reason we recommend applying for that first is there are other certain things that have come down the pipeline that if you do get a PPP loan for, you are not entitled to on the back end, such as the employee retention credits and certain other items, which I'll address in some of the tax, once we get to a tax code question. And we don't want to put anyone in a box on what they're doing. The SBA loan for the economic injury is able to be paid back over 30 years. The PPP loan is a 2-year payback, so it's much more aggressive on the payback structure. So we're also trying to take that into consideration, in that doing the PPP loan second seems to be the best option for a majority of what we're seeing come through the pipeline. Not everyone is sure if they're going to be able to open up their business again, or when it's going to happen, and what their cash flow is going to be. So we're trying to weigh all of that with every single question that we're seeing from people in how do they think things are going to operate in the future for them or their business.
Could you go in a little bit more about the PPP loan? I know you mentioned 2-year payback. I've been hearing a lot about forgiveness. What's the difference there?
So we have no idea what forgiveness is going to look like. They have not, right now they are more concerned with getting the money into people's hands. They have not defined what the forgiveness is going to look like. Are they going to request financial statements from companies and how they spent the money, how it was all flowing through the system, to make sure that no one used it for a, they have specific ramifications on what you can spend the money on. And so we're unsure of what kind of audit that's going to entail from the lenders on if things can be forgiven. As of right now, as far as we're aware inside our office, I should put a caveat on this, that the SBA and the Treasury Department last night dropped an 18-page FAQ. So this is still very much in flux in trying to figure out how this is all going to flow. We do not have any forms on how it's going to flow yet, as far as if you apply for the loan forgiveness, which I'm sure is going to be an application process, what are you going to need to submit for that? And what requirements are they going to place on the business owners trying to get that loan forgiveness? That's one of the reasons why we're really recommending doing the economic injury disaster loan first, while they're still trying to figure this all out. I know Wells Fargo is one of the largest small business lenders, and as of Sunday night, they were so overwhelmed with loan applications, they actually shut down their process on Sunday night. We expect it to open back up. They just have to clear their backlog because they are even getting overwhelmed, because there is very little guidance as far as how this is all going to roll out and what it's going to entail.
Constant changes. Trey, it looks like there might have been a follow-up question regarding the similar point from Greg from Foster Wellness. Could you go ahead and touch base with that?
Yeah.
Yes. Are you advising, Jordie, that we should apply for the EIDL first, and then if that satisfies our economic needs, don't file for the PPP loan?
That is where I'm at today. It may change over the next 2 days as more and more information is coming out from the Treasury Department and the Small Business Administration. Right now, we know that if you take the loan out from PPP and you don't get debt forgiveness, it is going to be a 2-year payback period as of today. With the EIDL loan, it is a 30-year payback, which means, you know, we can always roll the EIDL loan into the PPP, but once you get the PPP, we are locked in with the stipulations that they come up with that we have no guidance on at this point. But if the money is needed, I would never recommend someone not apply for it. But I would start with the EIDL first.
It sounds like some banks also have a limit on what they can lend due to past improprieties. Have you heard about that?
Yes and no. I am unsure of how that's rolling out. I do know that smaller banks are having a harder time doing the PPP loans. The PPP loan is administered directly through a bank, so you have to go to a bank to get the loan. The economic disaster relief loan is directly with the SBA. And so the smaller banks, say our smaller regional banks, although they may be catching up, as of Sunday when I was checking around, they were having issues being able to issue these. You had to go to what I call one of the big boys, think Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Capital One, JP Morgan Chase. It's a work in progress at this moment. And I know most of the big banks were not even prepared for the rollout on Friday. So we're seeing a lot of pushback, even, you know, Wells Fargo not accepting loan applications Sunday night, but they're planning on coming up with new ones. That is where, with not knowing how loan forgiveness goes, how all of that is, I don't want to see anyone take a loan out that they have to pay back within a couple years that they don't get forgiveness for, but their business hasn't picked up, where the economic injury disaster loan, we're going to have a 30-year payback. That is pretty defined.
Tori, it looks like questions are just coming in quickly, so I want to make sure that we stay on top of those, and we'll just go back and forth from our initial questions that we had in line. But I do see there was a question from Marcy Flannery. If you want to go ahead and take that, Toria.
Yes, on the forms, Marcy saw that they are asking for payroll numbers and number of employees. How does someone who is a sole proprietor with no employees and therefore has a Schedule C and no payroll fill out the PPP forms for themselves?
Good question, Marcy. I don't know the answer to that one because they have not given us any guidance on that. What I am assuming is going to come out is their net income that they would be reporting on their Schedule Cs is what we're going to be using as a gauge. Comparing year to year, self-employed people are allowed to do that loan, but they have not given guidance on how to do that loan, especially for self-employed people, although they are saying that the small business owners, which are going to predominantly be our self-employed, no employees. We just haven't gotten the guidance on that yet, and I'm hoping that we see that. Sorry, I have to look at my calendar. Today is Tuesday. I'm hoping that we see more guidance on that by Thursday or Friday. I can only feel sorry for the SBA people and the Treasury Department that are trying to write all the guidance on how to actually do this so that we're not having to submit multiple loans for one person because the loan gets rejected because we didn't do the form correctly.
Let's just keep rolling with these PPP questions. They seem very important to our viewers. From Veronica, I have a business account with Bank of America, and they are saying that if I have another business account with another financial institution, that I can't apply through them. I have contacted my small business rep there and have not heard back. Should I apply there anyway, since BECU, my other financial institution, is not providing support for the PPP application?
I absolutely would. With this being in such flux, the banks are not sure how this is all supposed to flow. They're waiting for as much guidance as we are, the rest of us. And they're in charge of trying to service all of us. What I want to try to iterate on this is rolling out so fast that all of this is, we're trying to keep up with it. I do know that one of my team members read about, you can't, if we have controlled groups, meaning, and I'm not sure how many people logged in would have multiple companies, but that you might only be able to apply for one of them. We're even waiting for guidance on something as simple as that, and trying to decide which company do we want to apply for, because we don't want to submit multiple applications when its main owner is a similar person with each company. And so it is in such flux when it comes to these SBA loans. The only one that the reason I am pushing the economic injury disaster, we have experience with that. We know what it's going to be. Yeah, the form doesn't ask for a pandemic economic injury. It's more looking at fixed assets, meaning, you know, the oven, your computer, your house blew down. That's what it's more geared towards. But we at least have administratively a system to work through on it, where this one we do not for the PPP loan, and they're trying to figure that one out.
So it looks like there was an additional question from Veronica as well previously. Yep. If you want to touch base on that one, and then we'll be able to move forward.
Thank you.
Yes, Veronica has been contacted by several finance companies. One was like the 11 Capital Finance LLC and applyforrelief.com. They're wondering, or they actually are saying they are loan packaging and processing experts who can help her business expedite the PPP application. Are you familiar with these organizations?
I am not familiar with them, and that's why I'm usually recommending only the large institutions that have a history rating. I am a CPA, and I am very concerned about supplying my data to people I don't know. And these other institutions, I am unsure what they're going to use that data for. Are they legit? There is a lot more scams going on due to this and everything that is rolling out. I would be apprehensive and try to work through your banks or the SBA directly and figure out, is this something that I can do? Now, the people I can tell you cannot charge you up front to fill out the loan application. They are supposed to be paid directly from the loan proceeds. So if they are asking you for money up front to fill out this loan, that is not advised to hand them any money, because that is not allowed under this program. They are supposed to collect the money directly from the lender as part of the loan application.
Jordie, do we need to worry about the money running out? There's a concern that you know, that folks may actually need this, but they're waiting to see if things are ironed out before they apply. But there's a concern that maybe the money won't be there when they do.
So what I've been hearing, and I try not to gauge anything from people standing in front of a microphone, because practical implementation of whatever they say in front of the microphone is always drastically different than what they described. Am I concerned the money is going to run out? Yes, I am concerned the money is going to run out, but I'm also know that people in front of the microphones in Congress are already talking about doing yet a fourth relief package. The one that the PPP was part of was actually the third one that they have put out. They are not in session right now, and they do not go back into session until April 20th. And when that starts happening, we do expect to see additional relief coming out. What that will look like, we are absolutely unsure because that takes an act of Congress and they don't play very well together these days.
Okay, it looks like there was an additional question from Amy a little while ago. I want to make sure we get those two questions asked.
Sure. Can you apply for a loan and a grant and unemployment? In unemployment, which category does one file under? And then Amy is an LLC, so she's her own employee. Does she file in the employee area or the self-employment area?
So good question, Amy, and you're gonna love this answer. It depends. The reason being, if you have paid into unemployment for yourself over the years, meaning every quarter you're reporting your own wage and paying the tax on it, you should be filing as an employee. If you have not been doing that, part of the third package was self-employed people are entitled to file for unemployment. Now, it's dictated by state. The states have to agree to certain Fed rules. Washington signed it, I want to say, within 20 minutes of this option coming out. And if you're unsure, I would apply under the self-employed section. You can always adjust it later. I do not recommend trying to call Employment Security Department to fill this out. I recommend doing everything online. The reason being, they are so overwhelmed. The only other item I would definitely mention on this is if you're having a hard time filling out the application, try to do it at off hours, meaning if the system keeps kicking you out, that's when you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning and you decide to apply for it at that time. There are going to be new data entries mid-April is what we're hearing from the Employment Security Department. It's already April 7th. I do not foresee that you wouldn't be able to apply for, looking back at your question, that you wouldn't be able to apply for grants, everything else while collecting unemployment. We're not even sure when people are going to get the money from the SBA. And you do need something to live on. And so, if they require you to pay back a portion further down the road because you got a large sum of money in the form of a loan or something else, I would recommend crossing that bridge. You're trying to survive today with the amount of money you have. So.
Jordie, earlier you sort of hinted at taxes. Are there any changes in tax code?
Many. So I'll start off with current tax issues that are going on. So we are being very conscious in how we describe the delay in filing by the federal government. It is not an extension, and there is an actual extension form that you would have to file with the IRS to be granted extended time to file. They literally just delayed the filing due date to July 15th. So come around to July 15th, if you still do not have all of your information to be able to file your tax return, that's the point at which you will file for an extension to have your extension valid through October 15th. There are a couple items I wanted to make sure I took time to touch on. Give me 1 second. We just printed up the most recent list. Sure. If you do have state filings, only 39 states are in compliance with the July 15th delay. There are 5 states that are not. The one item that is, so make sure you talk to your CPA. If you're filing multiple states, you've got to check in and look at all of those states. I won't list them out verbally. The one item that highly pertains to Washington state, even though we don't have an income tax, for the first time ever, they made the Department of Revenue B&O tax return for annual filers due on the same day as their federal tax return. Washington State has only delayed that annual filing to June 15th. So it is due a month earlier than what the federal tax return is due. It's also due 5 months after, when they normally had it done historically, or the due date of January 31st, which had been the way it has been for, I have no idea how long, 1991 off the top of my head. So if you do have an annual B&O tax return due, I would highly recommend mark your calendar for June 15th, because that is the actual due date. If you don't file it and pay it by then, I don't know how the Department of Revenue is going to handle this issue. We're expecting that some people will miss the deadline, and I would hopefully think that the Department of Revenue may be forgiving on penalties and interest, but we're unsure of their thought process trying to match with the feds and why they didn't in this one instance.
I want to make sure to recognize, thank you everyone for funneling your questions in the chat box. We are doing our best to make sure that we stay up to date with those, to be able to get them to Jordie the best we can. So if we haven't answered your question yet, we are scrolling back, so we're going to do our best to do that. Tareya, was there one of those questions that we may have missed a little bit earlier?
Yes, there's a follow-up question to the SBA EIDL loan in regards to, can we provide a $10,000 loan advance, or rather, can the loan provide a $10,000 loan advance to companies that have been hurt by the COVID? And is this loan, or does it, or doesn't it need to be paid back?
So it depends on what you spend the money on. We do know that they are front loading the $10,000. It is intended to be considered a grant. This is one of the items they just released last night, so bear with me as I look at my cheat sheet here. It does not appear that they are going to have any stringent standards, but they have loosened up the requirements for this based off of the history of, think of hurricanes and everything like that. This is totally different. And they openly say they're loosening the requirements. We're not sure what those requirements are going to be, because they have not clearly defined anything yet. I do not, at this point, I am not anticipating that that $10,000 will have to be repaid unless it gets rolled into a PPP loan. If one of the items is, say you only get the $10,000 from the EIDL, and then you apply and get a PPP loan for $50,000, you will actually only receive $40,000 because you received a $10,000 advance. And I hope I'm describing this clearly enough. And so it actually is rolling into a loan and may not be considered a grant, but we have not gotten clarification on how that's going to work, because we're not even sure how the PPP loans are going to be forgiven. And I believe their theory behind it is they didn't want to forgive multiple different items that are going on. And so they're trying to keep it streamlined in what you're getting, so that it's not a hodgepodge of what's going on.
Jordie, do you know if there's a delay for payment of the Washington State B&O quarterly taxes and City of Seattle's quarterly taxes?
As of right now, they have not addressed it. There is a delay. We were able, the process is somewhat convoluted in how to get your extensions in. I fully foresee that they're going to be doing that again for the quarterly tax filings. We have I would recommend looking at our website. We produced a step-by-step process on how to actually apply, because with the Department of Revenue, you actually have to send an email through the secure system requesting an extension due to COVID-19, and you have to be specific on the terms you put in there. And they seem to be just doing blanket extensions. The first ones we did in our office only granted a 30-day waiver. And then 2 days later, when we were submitting more, it was 60 days. And so that is a system very much in flux that I would expect we will be able to get those extensions. When it comes to the city of Seattle, you have to do it, I believe, through File Local. There is also an extension that can be granted for unemployment taxes and labor and industry taxes. Those are also different processes. I would love to say it's a simple one-stop shop application to apply. You have to apply to each individual taxing authority independent of all the others, but the terminology should be the same. The methodology is different.
Jordie wanted to jump to sort of a paper trail question. What information do you need on hand to submit in applying for the EIDL? Can we apply for the EIDL as well as unemployment? And even though the unemployment forms online don't seem to be updated to include self-employed folks at the moment, should we still be trying to apply for that, even though just to create like a paper trail for any sort of retroactive benefits?
I absolutely would. I would still try to apply, especially for unemployment. The first part of your question, I missed the first part of your question. I concentrated on the unemployment aspect because I would definitely recommend getting that in just for all of it. Does it create a paper trail? It does. It doesn't mean that ESD, if they deny you today, that they aren't going to authorize you next week. Absolutely not. Unemployment did have to suspend their 7-day rule that you had to be unemployed for 7 days. So it should be hopefully a streamlined process when applying. Their system notoriously goes down a lot, at least on our side, is preparing as tax preparers unemployment forms. I am unsure what it's like on the unemployment side, other than we have heard that it is somewhat convoluted. For the the first part of the question, the EIDL loan,
right?
On our website, we do have a list of all the documents you will need to submit for that loan. And it does have to be in paper form. It's not something you can do online. When you get your entire packet built, there's a request for a couple years worth of tax returns, stuff like that. If you own a business that files on its own, you have to provide everything essentially. What we're recommending is not that I like to go against social distancing, but I would submit it with certified mail so that you have a copy that it was received by the Small Business Administration, so that you know where you are in the timeline pipeline of what's going on.
Trey, there was a question from Martha Davis a little bit ago. If you could go ahead and touch base on that one.
Yes, I have a S Corp, and as an owner of the business, have not been paying into the unemployment. Assume I cannot get unemployment, but wanted to confirm.
You won't be getting unemployment. This unemployment structure was mainly designed during the housing crisis 12 years ago now. The federal money, they are authorizing the $600 marker, gets paid to the state. And then you, even though you are an S Corp and haven't been paying into unemployment, will be entitled to the federal portion of unemployment. You will not be entitled to the state portion of unemployment as far as we are aware today. Those rules may change in the future, but as of today, that is our awareness of it, that you should be able to apply. They are not clear on their application what you are applying for, but I still recommend applying. They will double check your payroll records, not yours personally, but have you been reporting your wages? They may ask for clarification up front because they do not have a clear path for how you should apply yet, but I would highly recommend applying.
I wanted to touch base about nonprofits. When trying to apply for the loans, are there any specific requirements or anything different for nonprofits that they need to focus on?
For nonprofits, the requirements are going to be roughly the same. It's the end result outcome that is going to be different. For example, for small businesses, the EIDL loan charges 3.75% interest rate over 30 years. For a nonprofit, they are charging 2.75. So you end up with different parameters in what you're falling into, but the documentation should be relatively the same that you're being required to submit.
Just want to also a quick little clarification on a previous question. As a sole proprietor, can folks apply for the EIDL as well as unemployment, or can they only do one or the other?
They're administered by two different places. I would apply for both. We have not seen any clarification that you cannot. We're working with a federal department versus what our state is doing. And so it's a totally drastic difference. The idea of the EIDL loan is to allow you to pay your utilities at your storefront, to continue paying employees, to pay your rent. It's trying to get your money in hand for that, where unemployment is strictly for you to be receiving, not your company to be receiving for you. So think of it as you have two different boxes of money coming in, and they're drastically different and designed for different aspects of what's going on.
Trey, any additional follow-up questions in our chat?
Yeah, I have a follow-up one on the EIDL loan. How does one decide the amount the EIDL loan should be given to any business?
I'm going to ask for clarification on this one for whoever asked the question. Are you meaning what should you be applying for, or what should you expect them to approve you for?
That's a great question. I'm going to go with, I think they want to know what amount they feel they would be approved for.
The approval process, because this is very different from almost anything else that has happened, in this aspect of what they're providing this loan for is not clearly defined. So I don't feel comfortable answering that at this time, also because we haven't gotten approval from anyone, even any of our clients that we've helped submit this paperwork. We have not seen what the outcome is going to be, because this loan was originally designed to replace property, plant, and equipment due to a natural disaster, not to make sure that you had cash flow to be able to pay. Certainly, whether it's your employees, your utilities, your rent, this is a new function for it to work off of.
Kind of more of a specific question for you. With loans being directed towards for rent payments, is that respective to homes where offices are located, or just for rent, utilities, etc.?
It is more, that's kind of a loaded question, and I'm really sorry that I say it that way. It depends on, do you have a rental agreement? They have not given a description. This is called in IRS lingo, and I'm sorry, I try not to speak in this, but an arm's length transaction. You're controlling both entities, and you're trying to get loan forgiveness for paying yourself rent inside your home. It's going to be highly specific, and I would definitely wait for more guidance on that before you decided to pay yourself rent. And you do not want to do it in such a fashion that it is going to monkey up anything on the back end as far as loan forgiveness, what you're able to use the money for. I would definitely wait for more guidance on that before you enact anything. One of the main things I would say, though, is at bare minimum, your company has to be set up as a separate entity, and you need to be paying yourself, have a lease agreement for fair market value. It is so intertwined. you're definitely going to want to work with your trusted advisors and professionals to try to figure that aspect out before you transfer any money for that purpose.
Should tenants agree to rent deferments or wait to hope that there will be rent forgiveness programs?
Do you mean, I'm guessing they're asking this question as far as, I'll use my company as an example. We have an office space, we're renting our office space. I would ask the landlords in what are they willing to work with you on, because that is impacting your cash flow today. And you will not know if there is going to be some kind of rent forgiveness bill aspects for somewhere down in the future. I try to help people work on what's actionable today. We try to be cognizant and aware what's might come down the pipeline in the future. But your best decision you can make is what you can do today to try to stay afloat. Asking your landlord for a deferment would be one of the first things I would do.
Let's take a jump over to the CARES Act. With the CARES Act, does everyone anticipated to receive the $1,200 stimulus check from the government, or how and when do we expect that to come in?
So we have been fighting this battle inside our office. If people have a pen and piece of paper handy, what they're basing the $1,200 stimulus payment on is your adjusted gross income. Now, unfortunately, the IRS keeps changing the tax forms, so bear with me on this one. If you look at your 2018 tax return, it is going to be the number on line 7, page 2. You want to look at that. If you're a single individual, that number, $75,000 or less, you will get a stimulus payment of $1,200. If that number is, say, $110,000, but on your 2019 return, different line number, 8B, is under $75,000, they will base it off of your 2019 return. Now, we have been working with clients. Almost everyone is shut down at this point or seeing a decrease in revenue. This $1,200 stimulus payment will be accounted for in some way, shape, or form on your 2020 tax return, so you may not get it until your 2021 if your numbers are too high based off of your 2018 or 2019. We have been talking to clients if they will not get it based off of their 2019 return and we have not filed this with the IRS, we will hold that until they tell us that they've gotten their stimulus payment, and they may have to pay it back with their 2020 return, but that's a year away and we don't know what the rest of this economic year is going to look like. So there is some planning you can do on that. If your 2019 income skyrocketed, we're advising people to hold off on filing their return until this comes out. The Department of Treasury, IRS is going to be the one issuing these refunds. If you have provided your banking information with your most recently filed tax return, you should expect to see the refund being direct deposited into your bank account. They are saying that their goal is to start on that, doing that process, I want to say April 15th. If you've routinely received checks, this is going to be an issue. Department of Treasury can only write 5 million checks, prepare 5 million checks in any given time. They're anticipating it is going to take 20 weeks to get all of those stimulus payments out. The unfortunate part is that they are also using those same check printers, I should say, for IRS refunds if you are receiving it by check. So we are anticipating that our clients that do not put in for direct deposit, if they're due a refund, we're even going to see a delay on them getting those checks as well as the stimulus payments, because the IRS has only so many printers, and they are the ones that are actually printing these checks to go out to everyone. And so I'm unsure when paper checks are going to go out, but they are anticipating to start and begin doing the direct deposits in 8 days.
Trey, it looks like there might have been a follow-up question from Susan Fuller.
Yep. I see your question, Susan, about the I believe this is the one we're referencing. EIDL applies for your business paying rent. We are submitting everything because we are unsure what they're going to ask for, because this wasn't entirely designed for a pandemic. Like I was saying, when we have prepared packets for people with their last 2 years worth of tax returns, anything that we need to, we are sticking in there. I would rather give them too much information than give them too little, and then have them come back and delay giving you money because you did not provide everything that they would like to see. Essentially, we're throwing in the kitchen sink and they can sort it out on their end on what they want to look at, because they don't have clearly defined parameters for this one.
Okay, there's a question also about the stimulus funds. Will they be taxable?
We in our office are anticipating, I'm not sure how old everyone is that is watching, but in 2008, there was a stimulus check that was sent to everyone. It's not going to be that it's, I'm going to use a couple definitions here, and I'm sorry if not everyone understands them, but it's not going to be counted as income like from your business, or income from Social Security, or income from your W-2 job. This is more of a credit that we will have to account for on a tax return, just like we did in the 2008 filing season when everyone received, off the top of my head, their $300. What it will be is it's going to be a dollar for dollar. If you receive the money and you were not supposed to receive the money, you will end up having to pay it back. But it is not going to be added to your income at this point as far as what they are defining it, because they are basing everything off of the 2008 year when they sent out the $300 to everyone.
Looks like there was another additional follow-up question on the amount of loans offered through SBA EIDL. Do we know how many months expenses they would be looking at to cover?
My understanding right now is they're looking for this to be, they're not anticipating for this to be a long-term duration issue. As far as the guidance from the federal government, they're hoping that the country will get to open back up relatively quickly. Nice subjective term. What I am anticipating is they are only going to be looking at 2 to 3 months on these loans, but are giving very generous payback terms on it. If this continues on for a longer duration, I fully anticipate that a second loan application would be able to go in further down the road if they are extending everything, meaning our sequestration, stay-at-home orders. If we continue to go through this pandemic and it's lasting much longer, I fully expect that they will release more funds to people that even received funds, but I would anticipate that you're only going to get coverage for 2 to 3 months from now.
So we only have a little bit more time left, so I wanted to make sure that we connect with at least 2 or 3 more questions that have already been placed in the chat box. Taria, was there one that we may have missed that we can circle back to?
Yes, Mary asked, is the $1,200 a standard amount that will be given or granted for this stimulus?
It's in their lingo, there is a phase out range. And so if you make less than $75,000 a year on the lines that I provided earlier, which I'll make sure that I provide the GSBA team with my hyperlinks going out for all the new stuff that they just issued last night, the SBA and the Treasury, that If you make less than 75,000, you are entitled to the 1,200. If you're between 75,000 and 99,000 on that line, there is going to be a phase out. You are not going to get the full 1,200. The more income you make, the less money of the 1,200 you will get. If you make more than 99,000 as a single individual, you will not receive any stimulus payment, except when it comes around to 2020, we're anticipating that you will be able to get and claim the stimulus payment on your 2020 tax return, and you will receive it then if you see a substantial drop in income. The levels for married filing joint, you just get to double what is on those lines for a single individual. So married filing joint, 150,000 is our cutoff, where it starts the phase out period, up to 198,000. That is the cap of income you can make, and you will receive something. Anything over that, you will not receive any part of this stimulus payment as what I'm describing as a front load on towards your 2020 taxes.
Jordie, I know that you have sent over a lot of information to GSBA itself. I know we are looking to make sure the stuff is put onto our GSBA COVID-19 emergency resource page. Excuse me, it does look like folks are already jumping onto your website for additional information. When they go to your site, are they able to pull up any additional information there to assist them?
Yes, very much so. And the way we're trying to organize the page, because everything is so fluid, we're putting the date that we are posting items. How to apply for unemployment was one of the first items we did, I want to say on March 18th. We anticipated that with April 1st coming around that it was going to be, tenants aren't going to be able to pay landlords. And so we did a write-up with hyperlinks, how those landlords can even provide their tenants, what benefits are they entitled to as far as rent assistance, who to apply for, so that the landlords can continue to pay their mortgages and are not going to go into foreclosure. Foreclosures are suspended right now, but that will open back up. That is a concern that we see coming down the pipeline, and we wanted to make sure that we addressed it. We are recommending that we are going to be supplying the GSBA with everything that we're writing up so that they can apply, put it on their webpage. We try to keep it to actionable items only on ours, not what I said earlier, the people in front of the microphone. We're still waiting for an immense amount of guidance to come out from whether it's the Department of Treasury, the Small Business Administration, even the City of Seattle on what's happening with the quarterly taxes on that side. Everything's still in flux, but we're trying to keep up to date on our website as a compiling area, or at least bare minimum, if we can't do a write-up, provide hyperlinks where to go and look for items.
Jordie, we are at the almost the top of the hour. Just wanted to give you another opportunity to give any additional words of wisdom to continue to help to ease folks' minds, to help with easing the burden during the times we're in.
I'll explain our philosophy that we've been using here in our office. We have a unique knowledge base. Most people do not understand the concepts or do the job that we do, and we're trying to provide help in our sector because we are all in this together. As much as I am sure there are attorneys watching, I am sure that do what you can to assist everyone else, because these are very trying times. We have never had to go through this before. So realize we all have a unique knowledge base, and we can all assist each other applying that knowledge base and putting the information out there as we know it should be.
Perfect, perfect. Well, on behalf of GSBA, we would like to thank everybody for joining us today. Additionally, a huge thank you to you, Jordie, for sharing your strategies during the wake of COVID-19, and of course, a big thank you to RainCity CPA. If there are any follow-up questions or questions regarding SBA loans, please do reach out to GSBA. The membership team is here to assist. We will be happy to give you the most current and accurate answers that are available. You can also visit our GSBA online guide and directory to find a full list of other certified public accountants ready to hear from you to assist. Be sure to continue to visit the GSBA COVID-19 emergency resource page for up-to-date information. Our next GSBA Rapid Response will be on Tuesday, April the 14th at 10 a.m. Our professional guest will be Aubrey Hicks from Dobson Hicks, where we will navigate unemployment, answering questions about your rights as a worker, as an employer, and when filing for unemployment. So until next time, please stay home and stay safe.